Hey y'all, in this episode I have Brian Harrington, ecosystem lead at Fold, on to talk about all the great things they're doing there. Unfortunately, we had quite a delay. Just wanted to give you the heads up first. The quality of the conversation is definitely there though, so I hope you stick around and still enjoy. Now on to the podcast. Welcome back to the Zoom Out podcast. I'm your host, Tim Niemeyer. Today I have the special privilege of talking with Brian Harrington, ecosystem lead at Fold. Brian, thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, appreciate you setting it up.
Yeah, man. Brian and I connected, I would say 6-8 months ago. Would you say that's about the time frame?
Yep.
6, 7, 7, 8, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And I've been following his story, and it just took a major turn recently. And I don't want to divulge too much of the information, and I think we'll get to there. For those who know me and go to the meetup, whatever else, I've been a customer at Fold for a number of years now, like pretty early on. So I'm excited to hear all of this. But before we even get into any of that, I'm just going to leave that kind of vague right off the bat. I always like to start out just to get to know Bitcoiners, like pre-Bitcoin days, like where were you? How did you get to where you are today? I just want to open up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's where I love to hit it off too. So I mean, just taking it way back, like I just was that like student government kid, just that student government kid, liked like getting the good grades and be the student government kid. And why it matters to take it all the way back to that is because then in college, even I still had that like, yeah, you know, if like people just like work together and like you can really just like improve society through like the regular channels and just like do that stuff. And so I just was that kid, and I wanted to like be a hedge fund manager and like work in finance. And so I, you know, studying economics, and then the math got too hard, and so I decided to study just business admin. And so I like was that guy, and I went to work for a credit union. And that's when my life, like I ended up getting more into like the marketing side of things, more into like the CRM management, just like building snowballs, building like grassroots movements or things. That's what I was doing for the investment advisor and the credit union, just like sales. And that's when I randomly, like through networking, found myself in politics. And so I was running these political campaigns in Orange County. And I realized two things. One, I realized that you can make more money as like a business owner than you can like as a hourly employee. And so that was really interesting. So that's what set me off on this long like freelance rabbit hole like of my life. And then through that, I did campaigns for a lot of years. And that's when I have that like random first email from my dad that says the word Bitcoin, of him just like finding stuff online, like me like listening, like him just sending emails. And so then we opened our Coinbase accounts together. Yeah. Yes. And that, like my dad told me about Bitcoin, like through that one email. And so then me and him opened our Coinbase accounts together. Yeah. That was awesome. No, I love telling that part because that is that flow that kind of like breaks the mold. And so that is where it started. And so we opened our Coinbase accounts together. And that's what set off just kind of like the research of everything. And the reason, again, why I bring up the like political campaigns is because as my enjoyment of politics started going like downhill, that's really when my enjoyment of like Bitcoin as the movement that we know and love started going uphill. And so eventually I did like take a job for like a Bitcoin startup and kind of like, I call it like switching teams. Like I stopped taking gigs from campaigns and I like started working for Bitcoin startups, and I started doing Bitcoin meetups. And so, I ended up meeting people in person.
You're working towards the ideals that you're searching for without all the BS of the personal interplay. You know, you kind of abstracted that away.
Exactly.
And just kind of
the way I say it.
People and noise.
Yeah. No, exactly. The way I say it is like even if you find the best candidate you can work for, and you can probably still only go to bat for like 90-95% of their ideas, and you're going to have to leave that last percent kind of just like, you know, that kind of is what it is like in that world. But Bitcoin is something that I like unabashedly can go to bat for 100% of the time. And that's what's that's what's cool about it. Absolutely, that's what's cool about it. And so, switched teams, started working for Bitcoin startups, did a big meetup in Orange County for a lot of years. And I'm just, then kind of what happened is my Bitcoin story, I started as that like that just like, freedom minded, like stacking 20
Sure.
bucks at a time, listening to Bitcoin podcasts, like kind of guy. Like I didn't have kids. I didn't have a mortgage. I was that guy, like just that classic prototype Twitter person.
One share?
But
Did you have one
now
share?
I'm like older. Yeah. 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 Well, yes, exactly. Like it was a couch. It was a couch, but
Okay, fair enough.
I'm pretty sure there was no chairs actually in the apartment.
I love it.
But yeah, exactly. That whole world like was me. And now the way that me and you got connected was I started to put out a bunch of stuff on Twitter, and I started to just feel this thing of like, I really want to see the Bitcoin personal finance game kind of level up. Like I'm desiring more from the apps and services now than in a different way than I did back then. And so that's what really led me to kind of talk about maybe, and there's so many ways to slice it, but basically like living on Bitcoin, but living on Bitcoin from the perspective of, again, being like a dad in the suburbs, like quote unquote regular guy. Like I'm very much focused on just regular Americans, like as I call it, because what I'm glad about Bitcoin now today is that there's tons and tons of like sub niches, and you can find whatever crew you want and whatever content you want.
Sure.
But I was feeling like there was this group of people that had kind of like aged out of all the apps that were available, and really were looking for something more from a product perspective, and are really looking for something more from like a content perspective as far as like Bitcoin personal finance. And so that's what led me to kind of like reconnecting with a ton of people.
I assume you're like me on this, that the farther I got into Bitcoin, it's like you have one foot, it has to be in fiat, and one foot that you're increasingly stepping into Bitcoin. But it's hard. I mean, those 2 feet can't really dance very well. It just seemed like I'm over here and I'm over here, and I'm living like a double life almost. Did you have that same kind of thing going on?
Absolutely. Yes, no, absolutely. And that's why the more and more my brain kind of like climbed over that problem, it's why kind of like this account and routing number concept kind of became my soapbox that I just continued to like hammer and hammer and hammer every day, because the account type is not the problem. Like the way that you like do things is not the problem. The currency is the problem. And that's what I kept like coming over, is that getting paid via an account and routing number is okay. Like that's okay. If ADP someday adopts Bitcoin and like payroll companies adopt Bitcoin, that's terrific and like great. And like I'm here for that world and I'm pushing for that world. But as of today, the account and routing number is what it is. And then still on the bill pay side also, like paying a credit card bill, paying a mortgage via an account and routing number is the main way that happens. And the amount of lift it would take to get each one of those little endpoint providers to switch to Bitcoin is a heavy lift. And I learned this firsthand by trying to do the whole like onboard bars to like BTC pay server stuff. Like I was working it from that angle, and as the years kind of ticked on, I was like, I reversed the whole thing. It was like, what if you just switched it over here, could hold Bitcoin like you want, but then still have interoperability with an account routing number?
So let me think about this for a bit. You've been in and around finance for a long time, in governance.
Yeah.
And then you find Bitcoin, and then you start doing that over here, but you still have your fiat job and everything. And was it one of those like big cat memes, this mind blown moment when you were able to see that these two worlds can actually coexist? What was that moment? Do you remember that?
Maybe. I think the moment. Okay, no, the moment is the moment. There's two moments. One was the first time that like Bitcoin Beach was talked about on like I believe it was like Tales from the Crypt. Like when Bitcoin Beach went on Marty Bent's podcast, Tales from the Crypt. That was a big one for me, because we were running our meetup in like California at the time, and we were using Wallet of Satoshi like also. And I just remember being like, there's nothing structurally different. Like there's actually nothing structurally different between El Zonte Beach and like Newport Beach, even though they're the farthest away places, like literally in the world, from like a just people and like there was nothing functionally different about what the phones were doing or even what the individuals believed. And so that was an eye opener for me of like maybe the circular economy can like happen faster than I thought. It also had to do a little bit with like I'll admit this was an impact of this was also it was deep during COVID. Like and deep during COVID of like I was having a lot of people kind of that desire to watch the world change was like getting faster because it had like created an immediate need to create like freedom and create a different perspective than like what was happening around us. And so both those things happened at the same time and that clicked forward. The second time that I experienced kind of that same level of like rapid clicking forward was when like the guys on Twitter started tweeting about Get on Zero. And the main unlock was just that the like holding Bitcoin can pay for the capital gains. Because from the old freedom perspective and from the old, again, like libertarian, like listening to podcast perspective, you have an aversion to like paying taxes because that's like funding like things that you don't love. Like that's not a great feeling. Like it's not a great feeling. Sure. Totally, like funding taxes is like not a great feeling. But I had never thought about it from the math side. And that's what was new. Like that's what was new and felt so fresh. What is that? It was just a straight up math comparison. And what I also love about kind of like Get on Zero was it. Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. We got a little lag here, but I want to hear more about that math because that's never been my strong suit. We got a math professor in our Lincoln Land Bitcoin meetup, and he basically explains everything for me. But what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Hey y'all, are you need a Bitcoin? You looking for a way to safely and securely store your Bitcoin? Check out the Bitcoin Advisors. These Bitcoiners are professionals that will provide you peace of mind so you can sleep soundly at night knowing your Bitcoin is safe. Remember to tell them Zoom Out sent you.
No. So, I also am a back of the napkin math guy. So there's people that split into two camps on this. As soon as anyone says like, oh, like, yeah, holding Bitcoin is your main liquid money, like more than pays for itself, like it's all good. There's people that just kind of like, kind of hunch it out and like accept the napkin math. Then there's people that want a whole thread and back test and all this stuff. I'm in the napkin math column myself, like personally. Okay. But again, what I loved about Get on Zero, at least back then, and the reason why it was clicking through for me was because it also wasn't a purity test. It wasn't from this thing of like all the other times where like Live on Bitcoin had been like quoted or people had been like talking about it. It was always like, oh, over there that works.
Like or a like nomad.
For a digital nomad, it's cool. Yeah. Or for a cypherpunk, it's so cool. Or if you're like off grid in the gray market, it's okay. This was straight up like, no, regular people with W-2 jobs were just using the tools available to not use dollars like as their liquid money. And that felt very revolutionary to me. Like the fact that they were just, because what was cool about Bitcoin Beach was they were just moving with the tools that they had. And then same thing with this. People here were just moving with the tools that they have and making a switch in their life. And the math was like more than paying for the capital gains, which was like a mental blocker. And so that's why that clicked forward for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because there is a feeling when you're in Bitcoin of not just being an outsider ideologically, but like structurally speaking. Like there are bridges and stuff to get from one system to the next and all that. I get that, but it's onerous, and for most everyday people, I would assume that's kind of like the turnoff. Like, why do I want to jump through all these hoops? Yep. I remember my early days, and I'm just hi, my name's Tim. I'm a former shitcoiner. In my early days, having to bridge this to that and swap this over there. And it's like I was spending more time doing that than actually enjoying my life. So that was one of the main turnoffs, along with all the other things that But now you've kind of abstracted that away.
Yeah. No, and look, I tweeted the other day, like I don't like a lot of people describe exchanges as like on and off ramps. I don't love the term on and off ramp. Because like I'm not off ramping to anything. Like I'm fully in a new economy, and I have backwards compatibility. I have backwards compatibility to people that are choosing to be in a different system, and they can choose to be in that other system if they want. All I'm doing is using an adapter to talk to them, but I'm not changing like what I'm doing with my life.
Any tech person that should just automatically click for them. That backwards compatibility. I'm not a tech guy, wholly. I did some back in the day, but that when you said that, I was like, oh shit, that was a big aha moment for me, because it is an old system.
Yeah.
It is outdated in so many ways, but you can still interact. You can still, traverse between the two systems. So
Yeah.
you actually, you were in the process of making this whole thing on your own with Base. Can you take us through that?
Yeah. So I was working on my own idea, did a bunch of user interviews, and it just like was because I wanted to do it. Like I wanted to see this happen. And no, that like I was glad that you were one of those user interviews. A ton of people off Twitter were like those user interviews, and that led to like a lot of my thinking. And then no, I just called Will one day and I told him like, hey, this is where I'm at. And Will at Fold has been tracking this entire conversation the entire time also. Like, and what's great about this is that structurally, like Fold has been like a live on Bitcoin company from the beginning. Like they always were like buy and sell gift cards for Bitcoin. And then they were the leading Bitcoin rewards debit card, which changed the game at that time period. And now this was already on like the Fold roadmap. And so he was just, I'm very lucky that like they invited me to like be a part of like pushing it forward. And so that's how all that came together.
So this is just like recently happened. Now this podcast probably come out in a few weeks, but so it'll already be happening.
Yep.
But like it's new, like a week or so new from the time of this recording. And I went in personally. Yep. I went into my Fold account. I set it up. It was so stinking easy. I had more time dealing with my employer because I had to talk to somebody on the phone, that kind of stuff. But like, it's just an accounting number and a routing number, and everybody else, all the other merchants and whoever else, that's all they see, and that's all they need to see. Man, okay, so
exactly. That's my favorite part about it.
Okay, so have you and Fold? What has been the response so far? Do you have any metrics or anything? I know it's still early in the game, but I gotta think that this has just been a huge game changer.
Yeah, no, the response so far has been awesome. Like everyone, like 99% positive, literally. Like, and that it's all and by like a lot. Like that, it feels like things have been stale a little bit. Like I keep saying like it feels like the old days. Like it feels like the old days of like kind of team sport again almost. I don't know. Like it just Twitter for a while, there's so many things are happening. It's like people are splitting into like multiple different social media sites, and then again Bitcoin has like various sub niches now. It feels a little bit like the old days to me. Like I'm thankful to just sit here and talk to you and have positive information moving out on YouTube. I'm thankful to have people kind of like pushing forward like their concept of potentially how fast like the Bitcoin versus dollar thing can be happening. I like have another meetup that I'm going to now, which I'm thankful for. Like that's like separate and another thing that's just like compounding this feeling that like we are so back. Like I'm just high on like we are so back right now. Yeah.
I love that. And I don't know if I kind of feel like we're almost speaking over the big thing. I want to say it explicitly, and please correct me or add in details where you think appropriate. With what we're talking about, with this new addition to Fold, you can save in Bitcoin and spend in dollars with flexibility on so many factors, like how much you want to save in Bitcoin, how much you want to spend, and then just the barrier has been removed. So
exactly. So right. with
Yeah.
with
Did I
the
miss
addition
anything?
of direct to Bitcoin, Fold has the ability to direct deposit. No, you nailed it. Like with direct to Bitcoin, like Fold users have the ability to every single transfer choose how much goes into Bitcoin, how much goes into dollars, and then via the account and routing number, Fold users have the ability to push Bitcoin into dollars and pay any bill via an account and routing number. So this is the closest, like physically closest on market that the ability to buy and sell Bitcoin and account and routing number are to each other. And that, like, why is that groundbreaking? That's groundbreaking because now, like, you tangibly have the ability to choose, like, currency choice within kind of, again, the old paradigm, the old adapter system.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the hard question then. I mean, when you talk about price appreciation over the long term, yeah, I'm not worried about that. But you
Yep.
got to think that there's going to be some people, like, how do you
Yep.
think about in the short term? I'm buying in Bitcoin. It dumps. I still got to pay my bills and back. Like,
Yep.
where's your mental model on
Yep.
that?
Yep. Two things. One is that's the exact reason why it's like set up on a percentage basis. So it's up to every single user can choose how they want to handle that based on how much Bitcoin they want to hold and how much USD they want to hold. That's number one. Number two, the way that my mental model works is if you're paid on a 2-week schedule, you're paid every other week. And then if your bills go out once a month, you kind of just flow into it. It's one of these things that you just kind of flow into and flow out of based on what's happening in your life. And so again, this has nothing to do with a purity like test. This is like a literal tool that you can fine tune to the level that you want to use it at. And so though the way that you can find yourself floating into 100% Bitcoin deposit is because everything kind of just floats up and down on these little 2-week bands. So yes, there like can be volatility and is volatility, but you have to understand it happens for both sides. You can catch it lucky on an inbound paycheck just as easily as you can catch it like quote unquote unlucky on a bill going out. And so it does kind of all begin to move together, and that's why it's cool that you can float in and out of it and adjust it how you want.
And I in my mind, being somebody, it's funny. I'm in Bitcoin. I've been in Bitcoin 6 years, and I would consider myself risk averse. I've always been very conservative. Like, to me, knowing that going in, that would behoove me to keep that 3 to 6 month cushion, or build up and then keep a 3 to 6 month cushion to dampen any
Yep.
volatility. And we always talk about how Bitcoin fixes this. I always like to say Bitcoin incentivizes this. Hey, it incentivizes some low time preference behavior. I mean, that's not a bad thing. Well, okay, so
definitely.
So we have Bitcoin and we have USD, and they're working side by side now. A while back, and it was just within the last week, you said something to the effect, and pardon if I misquote, but like, I'm all about like seeing Bitcoinization, and I think I used the
Yep.
wrong word
Yep.
in our email, but Bitcoinization in our lifetimes. And you state that it's probably not likely, and that we're going to basically live on this, I don't want to say dual currency standard because that has a lot of implications, but where they play nice together. Bitcoin and USD play nice together for a while. You care to elaborate on that?
Yeah. So okay, I I personally go back and forth on this, and so
Yeah.
I very probably have said both. Like, but like my take on hyper Bitcoinization in our lifetime is like I don't love the like saying we're so early because I think that comes with a lot of apathy. And that's where I love saying that it's actually fully in like our control. Like I actually think it is in our control. I think it all comes down to like software. Like I actually think that it comes down to like our own like mental model of personal finance and software. And so
Well, that's the right way to live. Also, is just having that
it doesn't require
uh,
anything like
self control. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I think the reason why the argument for why both currencies will continue to exist is because there's still a case for the like Bitcoin backed lending. That's kind of, there's kind of three camps that kind of continually rotate around each other. It's people that are like fully like kind of like never sell, like dollars will always be the like day-to-day currency. And then there's kind of the like Bitcoin is like the base money, and like really like complicated credit markets are going to exist, and like fiat is going to be backed by Bitcoin, and like at a
Yeah.
micro level you'll be able to like take loans off of it, and it's very like that. And then there's kind of the like Bitcoin as your
Lightning.
liquid money, and you can like settle debts or settle for goods and services like straight up, right? And all are accurate. Like the exact reason why like Bitcoin Twitter can get so noisy and like building products can get so noisy is because there is truth in like all of that. And so the way that I kind of see the like Bitcoin backed lending and the concept of being able to like settle like things with Bitcoin directly happening is this. I think some of the first Bitcoin backed lending products that are going to like, okay, everyone that talks about Bitcoin backed lending, I've never heard a great pitch that like closes the loop. Like you eventually have to close the line of credit. Like even if the exchange rate is going up and up and up, you like eventually have to close out the line of credit. And so I have been really trying to wrap my head around in a very just like grounded example of like a home equity line of credit is you get it put in place, and then a credit line just sits open. And then if you want to pull from it, you pull dollars into your account, right? I've been really envisioning like you lock Bitcoin and the credit line sits open, and then if and when you're ready, you pull dollars into your account. And then if businesses are like still taking dollars, and that's the fun part of like it still is a two-sided market, then you can spend those. But as you're getting your direct deposit into Bitcoin, you can then settle that line. And so you kind of end up paying like here's just a fun experiment. Again, this is random. Like imagine you live your entire life on a credit card, like a regular credit card, okay? And then imagine you have a Bitcoin backed line of credit tied to your account, right? And then your credit, so I go to the store today, I then have 30 days to settle that credit line, and then I have a Bitcoin backed credit line that then I settle that, and I have another say you have another 30 days, and that's just how it's set up. You're now paying your entire life on a net 60 while you're long Bitcoin. Like that's my most up to date, like as of this moment, kind of like, again, I also don't love speculating like tons of years into the future. Like I love thinking about like just right now and next year and the year after that, and like what's physically available today and what's like one step forward available.
So let me say this then. So if fiat is debt, you just allow that to be your debt side of your equation, and since Bitcoin is a bearer asset, you let that be your, so you're always pulling debt over here and then paying it off over via this is kind of what you're getting at, in a way, in a very simplified term.
Yep.
I love that.
No, exactly. And then that's why I do believe that so I used to believe that circular economy was going to be driven by the merchant side, which is why I was out in the community, like onboarding the BTC Pay server, doing all that stuff. I was believing that like merchants would drive forward tech adoption and then like force Bitcoin in commerce from like the incentives of that side, right? Now I kind of taken a step back. I've taken a step back. I actually believe it's like on the individual, and the individual is going to drive circular economy adoption by like adopting Bitcoin at a greater rate in their direct deposit account. And then that's going to drive forward Bitcoin usage because it is their main liquid money, right? So both these sides are going to be happening at varying degrees. And that's then where I do think like there is going to develop like multi-currency pricing. Like gas stations already have multi pricing based on what payment method you're using. I do believe that there's going to like businesses that do adopt Bitcoin as payment it's then like a pretty like small leap from that to having variable pricing based on
So
how you're paying.
you're going back to an old school Andreas Antonopoulos viewpoint. I remember watching a video, gosh, 5, 6 years ago, where he was talking about he could see a world where it's not just one coin to rule them all, but and so I've never personally I've never fully I understood his point, never fully believed that would be like the way. I always think there's going to be a dominant one, but the way you said that, I can see that idea coming back and it being predominantly Bitcoin, as the store of value is the apex predator, whatever you want to call it. But yet we have these other things that are all connected. And in a way, isn't that decentralization almost in a weird way where you have, I don't know.
Yeah, I I think so. And another, and look, here's an example of that in just real life, like taking Bitcoin out of it. Like Apple gives you a line of credit to buy stuff from them. Like I found this old poster actually of like they did this all the way at one of the earliest Macintosh computers. They had an ad that was like that was giving for 10% down. They would let you just buy the computer like on a payment plan, and they were like, now buying a Macintosh is as easy as using one. And that blew my mind that they were already attaching like giving credit in return for like buying something from them. And so yes, like fiat.
Why didn't they have their own Apple coin?
Like there's so many analogies. Yeah. And so even today, like if you go into a store, and you have the Apple card, you can buy things from Apple like on a 0% just like payment plan because they want you to buy their things. They're like, here, take it. Like you can leave with it, and then you just have to pay us over time. And so businesses are incentivized to create credit denominated in anything, but then there still is a money that settles it.
Yeah, I love that. So, gosh, it's kind of mind blowing. You're actually taking me back years and kind of like thoughts that I had back then and bringing it back and making it like relevant today. So thank you for that. So you're pretty busy here. I assume you guys are just all systems go. I also don't think you're going to rest on your laurels. I'm sure you guys got other things in the pipeline moving forward. Is there anything you're willing to share? Any developments?
No, absolutely, always. I'm a talker. Like I'm a talker. I'm happy to always say the next thing. No, next thing up is like fine tooth cleaning of stuff that people like know they want that are immediate follow-ons. Okay, the two are like Bitcoin deposit. So we have Bitcoin withdrawal, but we don't have the ability to bring in external Bitcoin yet, and so that's gonna like continue to fulfill this loop. And then also, there's a little bit of a thing right now where you have to withdraw all of your Bitcoin at one time instead of being able to specify how much you can. And so we're just like adding that as well. And and so it's just easy like follow-on stuff that's like exactly what you're going to see. And then you are going to see a little bit of a refreshed kind of view and vibe towards the like middle to end of summer. And so it's fun times.
I gotta say, I appreciate your insights. I appreciate your vibe. I mean, you got energy for days, and it's infectious. And like your ability to see this pretty much before anybody else is quite brilliant. And so I appreciate you sharing your time and your energy, and also chatting with me along the way. Because once I heard this idea, it clicked for me. It made sense. And it definitely needs to happen. And I'm glad it's happening with you guys. I'm glad it's happening with a company that I'm already a part of. So that makes it good for me. So is there anything else you want to share? Where can I throw people to? You're on Twitter. Anything else?
Yeah. Absolutely. No, and Tim, you were a part of it. Like, I appreciate your feedback. Like, that was definitely wrapped up in here, like, along with a lot of others. And so anyone watching today, like, message me on Twitter. Like, it's at Brain Harrington on Twitter. And then search your app store for Fold. It's on iPhone and Android. Search Fold and hit me up on Twitter. Loved it.
Dude, this was great talk. I appreciate it. Brian Harrington, thank you for coming on Zoom Out.
Yep.